welcome everybody. I got a interview I've been meaning to do for probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. One of our members, Sean, told me his story, and it's a pretty amazing story, and it's something that I really wanted to share with you. But Sean, can you tell us how you went about and got about, I think, 2,000 ounces for free?
Approximately.
Yeah, approximately.
Approximately.
For
Okay.
free from the banks, and how that you didn't do anything illegal. This is perfectly legal, and it eventually led to a interesting door knock. And but I think that this is a great opportunity for people to go out there and get silver. So, Sean, can you first tell me how you thought of this and how you went about progressively making it bigger and better?
I started investing in silver probably 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, I've always been into it since I was a kid, but on a bigger level for about 6 or 7 years. And I'm not rich or anything,
Hmm.
so I was looking for ways to increase my holdings at a relatively cheaper price.
Hmm.
And I had run across some forums that were dealing with like getting silver dimes and silver quarters from the banks.
Yep.
So I started doing that, and I figured out that there's not a whole lot left in the banking system because quarters and dimes are highly circulated,
Hmm.
and there's been people doing this for a long time.
Yeah, this is nothing new.
Nothing new. But me and my buddy were sitting around talking about it one day, and I had never tried half dollars,
Hmm.
and I used to work at the casino, and casinos were the last business that really used half dollars.
Hmm.
So half dollars aren't really in circulation very much.
Yep.
So we thought, hey, I thought, hey, I'll try half dollars, and I had some money
Hmm.
that I could use to purchase half dollars and sort and turn them into the bank. So I bought 3 boxes, and I got about 80 coins, 80 silver coins out of the 3 boxes that first time I did it.
Wow.
Granted, some of them were 40%, but if you consider the return, you know, when you were doing silver dimes and silver quarters,
Yeah,
it was way higher than that. And considering it was free, essentially free, I mean, I was only paying face value for the coins.
that's right.
It was a huge gain.
Yeah.
So I started doing it small, a few boxes at a time, and the banks didn't have any problem with that. You have to order it because I figured out the banks don't keep half dollars at the bank.
Yeah, because they don't
Yeah, you
circulate.
might go in. Right. You might go into the bank and somebody might have turned one in that day or the day before, but generally speaking, the week that they get them, they ship them out. They don't want the banks hate half dollars. They don't want to deal with them. Nobody uses them for anything. So, I figured that they'd be sitting in the vault, and sure enough, they were.
Current melt value, according to coinflation.com, these half dollars are worth $10.45 a piece. So
Correct. But
every one of those that you found was like finding a $10 bill, and it's essentially for free because you're exchanging fiat money for fiat money at face value.
correct.
And when you're going through there, you're essentially mining. I mean, you're like it's really easy mining. You're mining through this, and because these half
Right.
ounce or half dollars never circulated, you have a much better chance of doing that. So that's why I thought this was pretty ingenious. So okay, so you had a lot of success the first time around. How did this progress?
Um, I was unemployed,
Hmm.
and so being unemployed and also being a silver investor, I wanted to add to my holdings, but I couldn't really afford to do it. So I slowly started, getting boxes from the banks, and they didn't charge me fees because it was a small amount.
Hmm.
But
Now,
as
what's the
I
small amount? Because I know we got to a threshold where they're like, all right, this is going to start costing you something.
Right, at first I was buying, maybe I don't know 4 or 5 boxes a week,
Hmm.
and I at first tried to be
At $500 a
slick about
piece,
it. five hundred
five.
dollars a
Okay.
piece. At first I tried to be slick about it
Hmm.
and turn in a box here and turn in a box there. Well, that red flag me, and that they kind of go, oh, what, why is this guy going to different branches? and
Yeah.
and so what I ended up doing was, I personally went to Wells Fargo and I
Hmm.
just told them straight up what I was doing, and I ended up opening a business account. They wanted me to open a business account to do this, even though I technically wasn't running a business.
Yeah.
um, so so then, I started selling the 40% halves because those are kind of the redheaded stepchild in the 90%,
Yeah.
or in the junk silver world.
Yeah, and I mean they're still worth $4.50. I mean they're not
Right,
worth less,
right. So it
especially
gave
when you're buying them essentially for 50 cents on the dollar, or for 50 cents and selling them for. I mean you're making 9 times your money, so it's not the worst thing in the world.
correct, and it gave me more capital to use to buy more boxes of half dollars.
Mm,
And that's where a lot of people might run into an issue is, I was using I got up to where I was using $5,000 to $10,000
hmm
at a time. I got up to where I was buying like 10, 20 boxes at a time. And if people are going to do this, and I really hope people do, because the banks ended up closing all my accounts, even though I didn't do anything wrong.
hmm
Um, you've got to they've got to find a bank where they can leverage their money. And what I mean by this is, so I would go buy, let's say I bought $2,000 worth of half dollars, four boxes worth. I sort through them, and you can sort through them pretty quickly. I mean, I wish I had a roll with me to
hmm
show you
Because
or
you can
show
see them right
people.
away.
You can turn them sideways,
Yeah.
and you can just look down the side, and you can see them right away. I
Yep.
mean, even the 40%, it's very obvious. You don't have to look at the front and check the date, but it'll take people a little while to get used to that. I used to check the front, and it's just very time consuming. I got to where I could go through a box in like 3 minutes, very, very quickly. Anyway, so back to the leveraging your money. When you turn them in, a lot of these banks want to send your money into the central vault to be counted before they give you your money back.
Yes.
So essentially, in order to go through a lot of boxes a week, like I got to where I was going through like 50 boxes a week.
hmm
Well, in order to do that, I was only doing that with I think at $5,000 at the time. In order to do that, I had to bank Wells Fargo. They would give me my money right away because I built a relationship with them.
hmm
They knew that the money was there. That I wasn't shorting them anything. So I didn't have any ins in the banking industry. I didn't have any family that worked there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't have any managers that I knew. So I know there's people out there that have connections where that they can get hooked up like that, where you turn in your $2,000 of half dollars and they give you your cash right away, so you can immediately buy more boxes. That's very important. Otherwise, it'll cost you $50,000 to do what I was doing in order to buy that much coin, because
Yeah,
it
'cause
takes them a few days to count it.
I like the fact that we're plucking real wealth out of them. It's costing them time and labor to do all this and that's kind of the whole fraud of the system. It shows how how fake the monetary system is. Here we have trillions of dollars floating around and all this money, and it's all fantasy, and it's all doesn't it's all electrons in the space. And yet when it comes down to moving real money and counting it, it's simply like transporting it, simply accounting for it, and that they want to count all this change before they give you the money back and stuff like that's real banking. That has real wealth. And so here's a dual fold method right up the silver bullet, Silvershield, where you're stacking silver, costs you nothing illegal about it. In fact, you were upfront about it, and they still said okay, do it, because most of the people in the banking system don't get silver. They don't get anything.
Right.
They're zombies just like everybody else. And yet it's also a silver bullet because it is taking time and money out of their system to do this and put up this front that this money is there and this is there. So I really like this. So you got to a point where you got pretty big about this, right?
Right. I got big. I got very big. I actually I was told, okay, I dealt with Bank of America, I dealt with Chase, I dealt with Wells Fargo, I dealt with Union Bank.
Mhm.
Um,
And you had to
Bank of
open
America,
accounts with each and every one of them. You can't just walk into a branch and say, "Hey, I want some change."
some of them you can. Chase, for a long time, I was able to do it with a personal account, but eventually they all wanted me to swap it over to a business account, even though I wasn't running a business
Yeah.
technically. So um, they do not. Let me make this very clear: the banks do not like you doing this.
hmm
I'm probably one of the only people that ever made money off the banking system. I
Yeah.
made money off of them,
Yeah.
and they did not like it. Okay, they caught wind of me. The higher execs. I had regional like the regional managers contact me, ask me what I was doing. It was a big mess, and not really a big mess, but it got messy because they were looking for ways to legally make me stop.
Yeah.
um, one, like you said, it cost them a lot in labor. Brinks and Loomis did not like me because they were having to transport all this coin day in and day out. Okay. Let me some of the tricks. I want to tell you some of the tricks that I. Wells Fargo will let you. There's coin lock bags. You can dump once you sort, because they come in rolls, right? You open the roll up, you sort through it, you dump it in the bag. You don't want to go to a bank that's going to make you roll them because that's going to take you forever. I learned that the hard way, I guess. But that was one reason Wells Fargo was my main bank, was because they would let me put them in bags. It's $1,000 would fit in a bag. And I would turn them in like that, so I didn't have to re-roll them. Where
do you get those bags?
For a long time I got them from the bank, and at first they weren't. Once I set up a business account, there are fees involved, but I was collecting enough that when I sold the 40% silver, it would cover all my fees. Well, I went back and forth arguing with them. They made me start paying for them. I was getting them for free, then they made me start paying for them. I'm like, if I'm paying you fees, wouldn't the bags that you require me to turn them in be included in the fees? And I didn't win that battle. So I ended up, I would get them from banksupplies.com. That's where I ended up getting them from.
Okay.
I think they're like 50 cents each, like $25 for a bag, box, or a bag of 50, something like that. But even with the fees that I started incurring when I got large, it was still profitable.
Yeah.
And I know there's people out there that have done this. I don't think there's very many people that have done this on the scale that I did it to. And I want to assure people, I just don't think people understand how much there is.
Yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of half dollars that were in circulation, that were silver, and that you're right. Like, if they're good quality, they're not going to melt them down. So they are sitting at these large bank vaults, at the central hubs where the local branches aren't going to have them, but the banks aren't going to just melt them. They're not going to send them away. They do have value, and it doesn't really do much so long as it sits there. Now, if we get enough people all over the country start going, bank to bank, opening accounts and start moving this, who knows what will end up happening. But I just did a video about how the nickel is worth a nickel now, but as copper and nickel prices go up like they did in 2011, they were worth 8 cents. And I've been meaning to do this call with you for 2 months, because here you are, it's far better because you're trading $500 of fiat for $500 worth of half dollars, and out of that you're probably going to pick up like 25 of those per thing, and geez, each one of them's worth $10.
That was the first boxes I got they were extremely good boxes.
Yeah.
It's not always that good.
Okay.
And that's what I wanted to say. If people start doing this, don't get discouraged. The only way the silver gets into the banking system now is people turning it in. Okay. Generally speaking, this is how it works. Now, I lived in a major metropolitan area. I'll just say I was in San Diego. So usually every major city has a central vault. Okay. And I figured out that they carry around $50,000 worth of halves at that central vault. Everything else that's on top of that goes to the Federal Reserve Bank. So the Federal Reserve Bank has more sitting there. I was doing so much that they had to start pulling from the Federal Reserve Bank, and I figured this out because the boxes are different, and I ask a lot of questions. And like, seriously, I had the managers at Wells Fargo asked me why I don't work for the banking system, because I knew more about their banking system than they did by the end of all this.
I love it.
And I don't think that was a problem I had with Brinks. They didn't like it that I knew when their drop-off times were. They didn't like it that I knew all this information that they didn't think I should know.
Yeah.
But it behooved me to know, because I knew when their drop-off time was, so I could be there to pick up my coin, and it was time management. Yeah. So anyway, I had some problems with Brinks, and they don't like me too much, and Loomis either. Actually, none of them do. So whatever.